So we're going to talk today about building CRUD apps in Sinatra. And again, we're building up little by little so that when we get to Rails, oh, Rails is tomorrow. Okay, so we're building up little by little so that tomorrow when you see, all these different files and folders, it's not quite as scary as it could be. So at this point, we've done some simple routing. We've created some toy apps like the rock, paper, scissor and the Secret Santa and all that kind of stuff. And it's all very cute and small, but it's not extremely that practical yet. We haven't used anything with the database. We haven't done anything like that. So we're going to start building CRUD apps today. And I challenge you to think of any modern website or platform that you use, and I will, with 90% accuracy, tell you that it's a CRUD app. So just throw some stuff out. Oh, CRUD stands for create, read, update, and destroy. So any app that's in Snapchat, I can create, read, update, and destroy. Actually, no, I can create snaps. I can read snaps. I can't update snaps. Can you update snaps? No? Okay, so, but I can delete them, right? And then they go away. So at least I have 3 out of the 4. What else?
Oh, CRUD.
CRUD.
No, you.
Yeah.
You can't really destroy them on your own either. You have to wait for them to go away.
But they have the ability to. They do have the ability to go away, right?
I think so. I post some stuff I regretted, like you said. It's not deleted, but like otherwise,
Twitter is a CRUD app. Yeah. Twitter is a CRUD app. Twitter, you can create tweets. You can read tweets. You can't update tweets, but you can delete tweets. So there's another one. Amazon is a CRUD app in many senses. You can create, read, update, and destroy listings of products. eBay, every single new auction could be create, read, updated, and destroyed.
You can CRUD on Twitter with profiles.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's proves my point.
Same thing with Snapchat.
Cool. There it is. What else? Let's take like one thing. Try to think of one thing that's not a CRUD app. Is the main point I'm trying to make.
Oh.
And it's very difficult to find even one, right?
Okay, so like news websites. So like
that's just
somewhere just reading information.
News stories.
It's just
updating.
Okay, so the company's creating these.
Yeah, the company is creating news articles. You can read them as like a internal or externally. You can update them. They have little updates at the bottom. You can retract your stories and delete them if you're criticizing whoever's bankrolling you.
Like the AP the other day.
That's not an app. That's not a web app.
AP put out a story the other day that the 2 women that killed Kim Jong-un's brother were going back to the airport for a reenactment with the cops, and then they were like 10 minutes later, like retracted, like that's not what's happening. We're sorry. Like new story coming up. So I can definitely edit those.
Yeah. The main purpose I'm trying to say with this is that the modern web is built on this idea of CRUD, where every single thing that I make, I can probably most likely create, read, update, and destroy. Any profile that you may have, you can create a new profile, read, update, and destroy your profile. Any item that you buy can most likely be a CRUD app. All your photos on Facebook, all your posts and things like that, those are all things that could be CRUDed. So yeah, we're gonna start with something called the Bestiary. Who knows what a Bestiary is?
So like a bestiary? It's like a version of a bestiary? Where you store animals?
Yes, it's basically a...
yeah.
Bestiary. Yeah, it's basically a compendium of beasts, and I don't know what compendium means.
Collection.
Okay, so it's a book of animals. So we're going to start off with this Bestiary app, and we'll just kind of see what we have just to get started. All right, I'm going to bundle install just to get everything set up, and I'm going to list everything. Okay, cool. And I think I can just shotgun to get started. Ooh, we'll figure it out. All right, so our app's gotten a little bit more complicated than what we've seen over the past 2 days. There's more folders, there's more Yeah, there's more folders and there's more files. So as things get larger, and this is not even like the full size Rails app that you're going to see tomorrow. The Rails app looks a little something like this, with all of these different things, and all of these have different folders within them. Yeah, so it's consistent across the board, at least. So you once you learn it once, you'll know it forever. But there are far more folders and files than you dare imagine. But luckily, we're not dealing with that yet. We're just doing Besties Area with Sinatra.
Are we adding a database today then on top of Sinatra?
We're adding database, controllers, and models.
Oh.
So the thing, we've seen spec before, right? Spec is all test files. Spec files are test files. All the views refer to all of your all the views are what shows up on the screen. We have 3 new things today. We have models, database, and controllers. Now we've seen this database a little bit before when we were doing stuff with Active Record. Controllers is a new concept to us, and models is not a new concept to us. It's all of our classes that we've been writing for week 2 and 3. So let's kind of walk through all of the things that we have here. So if you take a look inside of app.rb, our Sinatra application now defines a class in app.rb called Besties Area. And it's like this class Besties Area is inheriting from Sinatra base. So this is now a Sinatra app. The whole class of Besties Area, which means this entire thing, is going to be nested under Sinatra base, which makes this all one giant Sinatra app. Sinatra calls this the modular style. So we're going to basically organize all of our routes inside of this class as a way to stay organized. So you'll see inside of the animals controller, it's nested within class Besties Area. This is called the modular style. Rails will not do it this way, but just so that you know it for today's challenge. Speaking of controllers, now that we're here, we have a new controllers directory, which isn't something that we've run into before. When we deal with CRUD apps, we write all of our routes inside of these controllers. And we're starting to get into the MVC framework, which I will look up right here. MVC stands for ModelViewController, and it's a way of writing software in a specific framework, in a specific pattern. Basically, you have, with most modern web frameworks, you have 3 layers. You have the view layer, which is what shows up to your, which is what shows up on the screen for your user. That one's pretty simple. The model is like your Ruby classes and stuff like that. They connect directly to the database. So if there's anything that talks directly to a database, it's going to be the model. So if I'm saving a new animal, if I'm updating, if I'm CRUDing a new animal in some way, that's going to be at the model level. And then the controllers is basically everything else, which takes care of like when I submit a form and I need to like parse down the information, or I need to like organize it in a certain way, or earlier when we were creating the Madlib, all of that stuff goes inside of the controller. The controller is more or less the brains. It tells you what view to show up on the screen. It tells you what things to write into the database, but it doesn't take care of the database writing itself. It passes it off to the model. So this idea of ModelViewController is what we're going to be dealing with from here on out.
The model just refers to the class files that give relations between different databases.
That is what I said. Did I not say that?
What was, okay.
Yeah. So just one more time. There we go. So this won't make a terribly large amount of sense yet until we actually start writing CRUD apps, but just so we have a common place to get started. MVC, again, stands for ModelViewController, and it's a framework that we use to write web applications. So we start off at the top. We start off at the top here, and you get some sort of request, right? Someone makes a GET request to /home or or you make a post request to like submit Madlib or something like that. that's going to hit your controller. Again, your controller is where all your logic was written. So if I go back to my
So is that all of our code? I mean, our app, or?
Yeah, that was everything that was within app.rb. Sinatra MadLibs. Let's put this back. So all this type of stuff, this was basically mimicking a controller. So it's kind of like I made a post request to submit MadLib, and I did a bunch of stuff. That is essentially what a controller will do. The controller is the brains of the operation. From there, the controller will basically tell me, like, do I need to do something with the models, which connects to the database? Do I need to hit the database in any way? Do I need to get a particular animal out of the database? Am I going to need to write a new animal to the database? Do I need to update or delete an animal from the database?
In the MadLibs, what was the model?
We didn't have a model because we didn't have a database. But that's the idea. Is like if there was like if you were writing into a database, maybe the class would be called MadLib, and then it's kind of like saying, like, I need to grab this particular MadLib out and do stuff.
You had a bunch of different stories where you can use the same.
Yeah,
models and
exactly.
stuff, and you dump them in
That's right.
different versions.
Yeah. Today we're going to be dealing with the Besties Area app. Besties Area being like an encyclopedia of animals, so to speak. So like we're definitely going to be creating animals, reading, updating, and deleting animals. So if I have some sort of request to delete an animal, it comes to the controller and it'll say, like, hey, like, tell the model to get this out of the database. It's like delegating out to somebody else. Controller also is going to, based off of that, like we saw here, it does some sort of logic for us like we saw in MadLib, and then it's going to load up a particular view file. Now, it doesn't actually do it. It's not in charge of the view file, but it just says, like, go to the view file, and then the view will present itself to you. So model, view, and controller. All right, so as we are getting more and more files like this, right? So we have a controller, we have models and specs and views and things like that. If we were to throw them all into one giant folder, like just dump it underneath Besties Area, it's not very organized. And order is the name of the game when it comes to very large web applications. So we need to, if you're going to write anything revolving around logic, you want to put it inside the controllers folder. If you're writing anything revolving around database stuff, you want to throw it into under models. So if, like, I have like a animal and an animal trainer or something like that, and an animal belongs to an animal trainer, that is a model. That's a table in the database. You need to put it inside the models folder. If you have anything revolving around views, like, anything that you can see, you'll throw it under views up here. If we take a look inside of app.rb, this looks a little bit interesting. But we're starting to see where Sinatra and Rails eventually will take care of a lot of things for us. This line 9 and 10, you don't really absolutely need to know, but what's happening here is whenever I load app.rb, it's saying inside of I'm going to load up this class, and I'm going to require relative for every single model file and every single controller that I have. So remember when we were doing stuff just with like Apple Tree and things like that, we had to require relative every single file on top of every single page. You don't have to do that anymore. This takes care of that for you. And eventually, when you get to things like, when we get to Rails tomorrow, you never have to worry about requiring relative a file ever again. Like, Rails will just take care of all of that for you. All right, so let's create our database, and we'll get started with this. So I will bundle install. I think I may have already done that. Now we're going to do BundleExec, which basically says I'm going to use the version of the gems found in gem file lock. If I were just to run like rake db drop and all that kind of stuff, it's using the one on my particular system rather than the one that's specific for this particular application.
So when you bundle install, does it install all the versions, and then BundleExec uses the one from the gem file lock?
So this one So there's a couple. So it's kind of strange. So anytime that you clone down like a Rails application or a Node application, they will have something like this, which is like saying these are all the gems, all the external libraries that you're going to need in order to run this. It's also going to have a version number that is known to work. So it's kind of like let's say Mickey's operating system is like OS X Lion, right? Like way back when, 5 years ago or something like that. At least even though our operating systems are different and we're maybe in 2 different time zones in different countries or something, we know that when we download the code and we use these particular versions, that it'll always work. So when you bundle install, it installs all of the gems on your machine up to the most recent version. But when you run it using BundleExec, it's saying, okay, I have the most up-to-date version, but I also have access to all of these as well.
So are you like when somebody creates a program, right? Are you sort of stuck in that moment in time then because your code has been written with?
That's a fantastic question, yeah. And the answer is yes. So it's kind of like we are currently on Rails 5, right? That's the most up-to-date version is Rails 5.0. That means that there have been 4 versions up to this point. I can tell you that Groupon is written on Rails 1. And on top of that, because technology moves so fast and the business doesn't move quite as fast, they can't rewrite it all the time, right? That takes a lot of money and a lot of manpower. But what happens down the line is something called technical debt, which is I didn't update things. Like I made a decision to get me to where I would need it to go, but now I'm paying for it 5 years later. So I'm on Rails 5. And the Groupon engineers are on Rails 1 or 2 or something like that. We're on Ruby 2.4. They're using Ruby 1.8.3. That's what I remember them using when they were there. So there's methods and things that you can do in the new versions that you don't have in the old versions. And yes, when the answer to your question is, if you were to start a company today using the most up-to-date thing in 5 years and you didn't update, then you don't have access. It's not updated anymore.
So do companies go through overall periods, or do they just continue to augment their code after the fact? So they'll supplement their original code with new code that operates on the latest version of the system.
Yeah, so generally speaking is like even Raise.com, right? Raise has a Rails monolith.
What is that?
Not Raise. Raise is one of our sponsor companies that hired 2 of our graduates, one from Alpha and one from Bravo. They are a gift card marketplace online, and it's pretty popular. Yeah, Raise.com. You can sell your old gift cards and stuff like that. And you can buy gift cards at a discount. There's a lot of things with like fraud and really cool things that they're dealing with. There's cryptocurrency and all this new stuff that they're dealing with as well. But essentially, what's powering this right now, let's say you have $1 million of seed funding, right? You need to get something off the ground. They decided to use Rails. So they have what's called a Rails monolith, which means like it's just this enormous application in the back that's powering everything was written in Rails. So they have the option of basically saying, I'm going to pick out bit by bit, and I'm going to move it up to Rails 5 or whatever the most recent thing is. But that's a lot of upkeep because you have 1 million lines of Rails code that you have to move over to a new thing. So what they end up doing is saying, like, what parts of this giant monolith can I section off into smaller pieces of software? So it's kind of like, let's say Raise.com, let's say this giant thing, buying, selling, and signing up and logging in, those are all part of one giant web application. What if we have one tiny little web application that's just for buying gift cards? What if I have just this tiny little application that's just for selling and for signing up and logging in, and I just have them talk back and forth using HTTP? And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're separating that into something called microservices, which is basically a giant monolith being split into like 15 or 20 smaller apps.
Yeah, so that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not really
that is what they are doing. But there is no real good way to go from like, I have 2 million lines of code and I need to move it into Rails 5. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't have enough time or money to make that happen.
But about your question too, though, like even though they're on an old system, like most of browsers and things like that are backwards compatible, right? So they don't really have to update if there's not like a necessary need.
Yeah.
Because most people will still be able to like access the systems.
You'd be surprised, like all the old financial institutions have stuff like written in COBOL. it worked. It's worked for 30 years. It takes too much money to make it, to redo it.
Yeah.
So they'll just make like a nice looking front end and then keep everything else the same. All right, so back to this. We'll do BundleExec rake db drop, just to drop the database at first. We will create the database, migrate, and seed.
So no more Postgre or
Yeah, we don't have to
SQLite.
wait for-
What's that?
No more Postgre or SQLite.
No, it's Postgres all the time. It's just this is so small that we can use SQLite. It was just to show that you can use different flavors of databases.
So is our migration thing already made? Or
It's already made for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's right here inside of DB migrate. This odd looking timestamp, 2017, January 26th at 1:32, 15 seconds. All I have is a table called names with a name and a description. So let's jump into this controller to see what the route is called. So if I go to /animals, I should see all of my animals.
Just for clarity, we haven't used, this is the first time we've touched SQLite, right?
Yes.
But it's the same idea, just everything works.
Yeah, everything works the same way.
Okay.
Okay, I think
Do you have a layout file?
no, I don't need it. We'll figure it out as we go along.
Do you
Whatever.
need the extra class designation?
Yeah, you do. For it's a weird modular style for Sinatra. But yes, you need to have everything nested within the class in order for it to pick it up.
Like on both ends, in app and in the control.
Okay. So as of right now, we're gonna start this CRUD ability, right? We're gonna be able to create, read, update, and destroy particular animals. So when we want to add a new entry, we want two routes. One is a get route for just to create a new animal, and then another one is a post route to actually write that one into the database. So one is just to see the form, and one is to actually write it inside the database. So we're going to try to create tests without even writing code first so that we can think about what we want our code to do without having to worry about all the specifics. Again, we're going to do that TDD style. It's going to be kind of painful, but it is a better way to write software, arguably. All right, so I'm going to go inside of spec here, and I have a controller for animal controllers. So you kind of started more or less with more of a skeleton. And we're going to deal with just the get new. So we want to create a new one, and then we want to post create. So get for the form, and then post for actually writing things into the database. Just going to grab this from the curriculum, and everything I'm saying and doing is directly from the curriculum. So you don't have to worry too much about that. All right, so we're following the given, when, then again. So when we make a request for get new, it's going to show us a form. So I don't need anything to set up ahead of time because I'm just visiting the page. I don't need to log in or to change a password or anything. So I'm just going to visit. I'm going to do this when, which is get /animal/new. And I expect the body of that response to include create a new animal. All right, so I'm just going to run BundleExec rspec. And I have one failure because I haven't written that code quite yet. So I'm going to deal with that right now. Let's split this into two. No, that's actually not split into two, it's too small. going to go inside this animals controller right here. I'm going to do get/animals/new. I'm going to load up a new ERB file called animals/new. And you'll notice that before we were just kind of like dumping all of our views under views, and now we have specific folders for specific controllers. So once this gets larger, if I have like animal trainers, and I have like, if I wanted to deal with things like, let's say this was a zoo eventually, and I need to take care of like employees and payroll and all that kind of stuff, that would all go under controllers here. And each one of those would have their own corresponding folder under views. So I'm going to create a new file called new.erb. And I'm just going to have some content that says create a new animal. All right, so let's run the specs one more time. This should pass. That's good. But if you go back to our code right here, it's not really the greatest thing because I'm saying on line 16 that I wanted to show us a form, but instead all I'm saying is create a new animal. It's not testing that we actually have a form on there. So maybe I will have something maybe I'll add a few extra lines. I will have a couple extra lines, one to include description, because every single animal has a name and a description, and then another thing to have name on there as well. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to run back to this new here. I'm just going to create a form for us. Now this giant form, again, we're just going to go pretty quickly and line by line. It's a post request to /animals. And we're going to have a label for the animal name, where the name is going to be name, and then we have a description also on the page. So if I run BundleExec rspec, I have one passing because I added that to the test, and then I created it inside of my form as well. So let's run BundleExec shotgun. I think I don't need to add the app.rb. I think that was what was going wrong. Please work. Nice. All right, so we got to animals. We have all these individual animals. All of this will break because we don't know what we're doing quite yet. So we'll just do animals/new. Does this have our form on there? Cool. Create a new animal with the name and the description.
Can we go back to the code that I just jumped a little quickly?
Sure. So how about this? I will copy this, and I'm going to just, oh no, let me refresh. Make this a little bit smaller. I'll make this a little larger. I'll just put it in here, okay? So we can see. Okay. So this whole thing, this section right here, underneath create a new animal, this name and description, is a form. I'm going to, when I press this create button, this submit down here, it's going to post to /animals, meaning that it's going to make a request to the controller to do something. Now I have two divs, div just being like two separate sections on the page. I have a label for the animal name, which is something I'm probably not going to use very much. And then the thing that actually shows up is going to be name on the screen here. Inside of there, I have a input type of text. So this input box, it knows that it's expecting some sort of text in there. The ID is going to be animal name, and the name of it, remember that thing that how we access params, is going to be called name. And I'm repeating it down here for description. And the difference between input type, the first one has input type and the second one has text area, because this one is able to be kind of like stretched and things like that, whereas this is just a small little text box. And then finally, all the way at the bottom, I have a third div, a third section of the page, where it's a submit button, and the value of it is going to be create. Like what shows up on the screen is going to be the create bang. Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah.
This is just a form that you can. I'm not an expert on forms. I just copy things until it works. All right, let's try creating a new animal. So let's call it cat and meow. when I press create here, it actually takes me to a page that it doesn't know what to do because I haven't yet created this action for post/animals. So our create action is the next thing on here. So I got to the point where I have a form on the page, right? And now I have to create the functionality to actually create the animal inside the database. So I'm going to grab this giant block of code, and I'm going to kind of I'll go slowly through this one. So this is the first time that we're dealing with anything with creating something. So this is the C in CRUD. So when I like hit the post create, like when I do like post/animals here, I'm expecting it to actually write into the database. So I'm going to follow that given, when, then. So given, sorry. This is the given. Like I need, because I'm going to be posting to something, I need to have the parameters set up ahead of time. So I'm going to have a params of where the name is going to be doggy, and the description is going to be this fluffy barks, generally quite cuddly. That's something I need to have ahead of time. The when is what's going to be executed, and it's actually found within this, this expect block. Now you've seen expect blocks like this with the parentheses. This one is just saying like I'm not evaluating anything, and I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just evaluating what last response.body is. Like what is the value of that? But when I have these curly braces with the expect, it's saying I'm actually going to execute this. So given is this params right here. When is what's being executed. It's what's within the curly braces. And then is this whole block right here. What do I expect to get as a result? So when I post to /animals with the parameters here, I expect animal.count inside the database to change by 1. So when I'm expecting when I post to /animals with these, it's going to actually create a new animal here. So expect this block of code to change animals count, like selects whatever the count is from the database of animal by 1. Did I lose everyone on that? Kind of? All right. Well, if you are struggling, just let me know later. And then second, so once I create the animal, I expect to redirect to view that particular animal. It's kind of like when I create my account and I press submit and everything, I'm being saved into like Gmail's database, and then immediately afterwards they redirect me to like, welcome to your new inbox, right? So it does something afterwards. It doesn't just submit it and just hold me there forever. So here are those parameters once again. I'm going to post to /animals with those parameters. I'm going to set new animal as a local variable to the last animal that was created. So if I post it to /animals with these parameters, it's saved into the database. I'm going to grab the last animal out of the database. It's going to be this one right here, this doggy with fluff barks, etc. So this is the given. This is the when, and then this is the then. So what do I need ahead of time? What's actually being executed, and then what is the what do I expect at the end? So a redirect, we know that the status is going to be 302. Anything, remember you go to the bar, you ask someone out, and they say, let me introduce you to my friend. That's 300 status code. I'm redirecting you somewhere else. And I expect where they're redirecting me to is animals/newanimal.id, which is the last animal's ID in the database. I'm going to keep this running, and I'm going to open another one. Besties Area. So this one's going to fail. We have 2 issues. It didn't change the count because we haven't written the code. It didn't redirect because we haven't written the code. Let's go inside of our animals controller, and we're going to take care of this post request. So this post request goes to /animals. So post/animals do. I'm going to do animal equals animal got new params animal.sync. I think that's about it.
How you refer to the class animal? Like, is a animal is a class in the database?
Yeah, animal is actually a model. Yeah, a model that connects to the database. So remember, inside the database you have tables, right? So there would be an animals table, which means that every single record is one singular animal, and that's this animal right here, this model. So the way that I'm going to connect from my controller into my database is through the model here, the animal.rb.
Can you do the database creator?
Sure. Yeah, it's just a simple table called animals with 2 columns. One's called name and one's called description. All right, so we're back over here. So when I create a new animal, remember we were doing things during the first few weeks of class where we were like instantiating objects when we were instantiating objects. So I'm going to pass in a bunch of parameters, and then I'm going to save it into this database. This save bang is going to save it into the database, and if there's issues, it will let you know. So if I run rspec, I have, what's this? Unknown attribute captures for animal. Ooh, that's weird. That is something I have not seen before. Let's Google. I think, well, let's find out. I'm going to look at a few things here. Unknown entity within nested form. This is not helpful. For this one, I'm just looking for a bunch of thumbs up and stars. No, there's nothing. Okay. In that case, I'm going to do things the old-fashioned way. Pry, make sure it's added to my, it's right here. So let's try this one more time. All right, so I'm stuck in a pry session. I'm stuck in the first test. If I look at params, I have name, description, and captures. This is stupid. I don't want this here. So if I do this animal equals animal.new with params, it says that there's unknown attribute of captures. I'm not sure why this is here, but that actually leads into my next point. Part of the issue when it comes to like hacking things nowadays is like you can add a bunch of stuff into forms like illegally, like on the side. So it's like even though your form may have said first name, last name, social security, or something like that, it also could put like some sort of malicious information inside of your form. So what the security community has decided to do is that they're going to do something called whitelisting parameters. Whitelisting meaning like only the things I tell you are allowed to be here. And similarly, it's kind of like if you go onto a military base, you have to pass the front gate and you have to like show your identification to the people at the front before you can go in. So it's like when I visited my friend at the is there a Navy base right by LAX, Anaheim?
Still Beach.
Okay. It starts with a V.
Vandenberg? It's
I
Air
don't-
Force Base.
I don't know.
Near LA.
Yeah, it's near LA.
Vandenberg, probably.
I don't know.
Air Force Base.
No, it's supposed to be a
Navy
Navy base, yeah. But when I went there, they said like, "Oh, do you have your identification?" Just to make sure that the people who are there are the people who are supposed to be there and are accounted for. Similarly, here when we're dealing with parameters, you only want to allow things to come in that are specific to what you want. So if you see like I have this extra thing of captures here, I'm not sure what it does, but it's not supposed to be there. I don't care about it. I only care about name and description. So what a lot of people end up doing is that they will create a private method called whitelisted params, which means I'm just going to only permit certain things to come through, the name and the description. So let's just copy this over for right now. Oh shoot, they don't have permit.
So there were only 2 places to type anything in on our form. So how would
They can
anything else
intercept.
come in?
You can intercept it, and then so it's kind of like you can when you fill out a form, like the number of things that go through are like there's a way to. I can post directly to here, is what I'm saying. Like I don't need the form to post. I can just post directly there. That's kind of what this spec is doing. So I can just add like malicious, and then I can just do like select star from like credit cards or something like that, and I can grab all your credit card information. I can post directly there. I don't need to like I don't need the form to do that. So that's the scary part about online. So, or I can do, I'm just going to do this name equals params name, and then description goes to description. This is another way to whitelist variables. So it's kind of like saying, even though like somebody may have added that like malicious code, I'm only going to care about the name and the description right here. So. If I run this now, I have 2 passing, and then one that says I expected a redirect, but instead I got a 200. And that's mostly because I don't have a redirect here. So I'm just going to redirect to /animals/animal. Run the test one more time. 3 examples, 0 failures. Let's run this in real life and see what happens. So I have all of my animals here. I'm going to go to /new. I'm going to create a walrus. I'm just going to call it fat and create. So when I create it,
Just big bone.
What's that?
He's just big bone.
Big bone, right? So when I hit the create button, you can see that it was saved into the database. It's the 13th record in the database, and it redirected me to /animals/13. Because it's actually going to take me there. But right now it's broken because we haven't gotten to that piece of the code yet. All right, I'm going to do one more section, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back.
At terminal, why you have to use B, like B checkpoint and B.
This one? No, BE.
Yeah, B.
BE is short for BundleExec. So
Alias should create
again, if anything is not making sense, like please stop, because I'm only going to go as fast as people stopping me. So BE, I added a little alias here in my bash profile called BundleExec, and you can add this to your bash profile as well, because I hate typing out extra letters. I can type 2 letters, or I can type in, I think this is 11 characters.
How do you pull in your bash every single time?
So if you just open a new window, it just loads in automatically. But if
a new terminal window?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, let's say I wanted to do like.
Where's this right now?
Sure. Hold on, let me.
If you want to look at yours, all you have to type in is bash, because I think we all copied his profile, and there's an alias called bash for.
Yeah. Or I could do subble tilde bash profile, and then this will open it up in Sublime, and this is the settings that you have all the time. It's kind of like if you were a frequent traveler and you say like, when I show up at any Marriott hotel, I want you to greet me by first name or something like that. It's similar to that. So let's say I wanted to create a new alias called say hi equals echo. I don't know how to do echo. Is it just that?
Echo say, and then
Is it like that?
put, yeah, I think so.
Actually, let me just.
You have another example in there somewhere, don't you?
I'm just going to have Ryan. So whenever I type the alias Ryan, it's going to execute Gossleep. And some of you were not here to see this, but it is kind of hilarious. So when I type in Ryan right now, Ryan is nothing because I've updated my bash profile here in this particular window, and it's not loaded in. So I can do 2 things. One, I just open a new one and just type in Ryan, and then Ryan will fly across the screen. or I can
Again.
or I can basically say like I want you to refresh, and it's basically like refreshing a browser. But the way that we do that one is going to be source bash profile. So one command was to open the bash profile, and then the other one is to reload the bash profile. I also have an alias called reload that I've given to everyone. So when I source bash profile, it'll say like, okay, let's refresh and bring in all the settings that this person wants. And then I can type in Ryan now, and then Ryan appears across the screen. There was a very annoying person who decided to make anytime anyone committed on any machine, like Ryan Gosling would fly across your screen. So anytime you did git commit whatever, before it committed, Ryan Gosling would fly across your screen.
That was like a virus, or
No, it was just kind of like a funny thing.
So for a while, everybody committed.
Yeah, on a particular machine.
Okay.
On a particular machine. Actually, I think I can set it up for yours. Yeah, I think I can set it up for yours as well. So that's the BE. BE stands for BundleExec.
Why you use BE with the shotgun too?
Sure. So if you take a look at this gemfile.lock, you see all these different versions, like active record 514, Errol 800. If I was in California and you were in, like Greece or something, and you're working on things, we want to make sure that we're using the same piece of software. So in order to ensure that we're using the same versions and not like the ones that are found on my own system, when I do BE, it locks into these particular versions when I fire up the code. That's what BE does. Actually, let's take a break here for 5 minutes. We'll be back at 11:15. All right, so picking up where we left off, we get redirected to the animals and the 13th animal inside the database. But the issue is that we don't have a view for this yet. So we'll create a test, we'll watch it fail, we'll create a piece of code, and then we'll make it pass.
It's a redirect. It's like the function in the. What's a redirect function?
So it's kind of like when you go to codeplatoon.org, right? Let's take a look. Codeplatoon.org. Watch what happens when I hit enter here. It actually redirects me eventually to https codeplatoon.org. So when I type in codeplatoon.org, that's actually not a real website, but my website knows that like whenever anybody actually makes a request to codeplatoon.org, I'm going to get redirected to https www.codeplatoon.org. Same thing with Google. If you go to google.com, it'll automatically redirect you to https. When I inspect the element on this right side here,
Is that like a DNS redirect, or how?
I think that's a DNS redirect. Or better yet, like when you sign up for anything, you press sign in. It's doing something. It's saving your stuff into a database, and then it redirects you to like a home page or something like that.
Is it like the method in the Ruby or like?
Oh, this thing, this redirect. This is a method for Sinatra. In Ruby's a little bit different. I think it's redirect _2 instead of redirect. And then every framework has something like this built in because redirects are just that common.
How you know like verify the method in Sinatra? Like how you come up?
Like how did I know this?
Sinatra docs.
Yeah, Sinatra. There's documentation for that. Or if I just look up like how to redirect.
Is the sole purpose just to return a 300? 302 versus a 200?
Yes and no. Like redirect, it's like I just Googled it and I found it. But to answer Alex's question, one, it sets the status code and it redirects. So it does both. So that underneath the hood, this is setting the status code to a certain number, usually 302. And then it's going to automatically like take you to the actual page, that actual route. And, like it makes a new request for you on your behalf. All right, so let's go back to our controller spec. Now we're going to do this get show right here. So we've just done the CRUD, the C in CRUD, which is create. So I've created something. Now I'm on the R. The R is for read. Like, how do I read this particular, like the 400th user in the Amazon database, or the 13th animal for us? So I'm going to create a test right here. Just copy and paste this one. And I have this test right here that follows the given, when, then protocol. So this describes the get, which is like a show action. Like I want to read this particular resource out of the database. So nice little descriptive message for me that shows details about the animal. So I need to, in order for this test to execute, I need to create an animal. That's something I need to do ahead of time. So I'm going to create this animal using this create bang, which is going to be named as dog, description as all the things that we just had. This is the given. This is the when. This is what's being executed. And then the then, which is what do I expect at the end. I expect the body to have the name dog on there and include all of this description as well. So when I run this test, BundleExec RSpec, I should have 4 examples and 1 failure. And it says like, this page doesn't exist yet. Makes sense. We actually haven't written any of the code. So we're going to jump back and forth to the animals controller here. And I'm going to have a get animals ID. It's similar to all the things that we've been doing recently, with the exception of this one tiny addition. We're now adding in like the active record and Ruby stuff back in. So I'm going to find the animal based off of the ID that was passed in inside the parameter and inside the URL. And then I'm going to load up animals show, the show ERB template, which for us right now doesn't exist. And I'm going to pass in a local variable called animal. So from there, I'm going to create a new file called show.erb. I'm just going to dump in 2 things. One is called animal name, and one is called animal description. Again, I'm passing in that animal as a local variable from the controller into the view. So let's run the test one more time. Hopefully this passes. 4 examples, 0 failures. Let's see this in real life. So when I refresh this page, I'm making a GET request to /animals, and the ID for us is going to be 13. So I'm going to have a local variable called animal, which is going to look inside the database for the 13th record. And we'll show it on the screen. So we have walrus and fat. That's all there is to this one. If I go back to the /animals, and I click on horse or something like that, like there's another description for it, and so on and so forth. Doggy is up here, and then dog.
Yeah, so are each of those doggies, do they have different?
Nope. So this is going into a concept called database cleaner, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Every single time I'm running the tests, I am also throwing everything inside the development database. So I run the tests, and it's like you can kind of see right here. I've run it several times, right? And in addition, I'm creating, every single time I run, I create this animal. And I'm creating this animal. And then I create this animal. Like, and they're all doggies. So every single time that I'm running it right now is going to be quite annoyingly, it's going to get much larger every single time that I run the test. Pretty soon I'm going to have like 100+ animals, like you'll see. The way to get around this is using something called database cleaner, which means that every single time I run the test, clear it out at the end. And then Rails will automatically separate 3 different databases for you right off the bat, so that when you're writing things in development, it only affects the development database. When you run RSpecs, it won't affect either of the other 2 production or development databases.
Where is the dog come from? Like, I thought that you put the dog key. Most of them have 2 of them is like dog.
Let's find out.
Dog was in there at the
I
beginning.
think dog was here. Dog is right here. Yeah. Cool. So I'm able to read an individual, dog. I'm also able to read all of the dogs, luckily, but I don't have a test for that. So we'll just grab it here. And I'll paste it in. Got two tests here. This first one I'll go over. I'll go over this one first. So it says this particular test whether or not I'm going to show a list of all the animals. So I have this given, when, then protocol. So given, what do I need ahead of time? I'm going to create two animals in the database. One's called the dog, and one's called the cat. When I go to /animals, I expect there to the words dog and cat to show up because that's what I'm passing in. I'm creating two animals like that. And then on top of that, I expect there to be links to each individual one, kind of like what we saw here. These are all individual links. So when I create a dog given, when, and I execute going to /animals, I expect somewhere on the page there to be /animals / whatever I just created. That one is going to have an ID in the database, and that's going to be interpolated here. We run the tests. Lucky for us, someone left us a working implementation of this action as an example. And if we go back, we can kind of see it right here. We have this get /animals. I have a local variable where I'm going to grab every single animal from the database. I'm going to load this ERB index file. And then I'm going to pass in a local variable called animals inside of here. So I'm iterating over each one of the animals, and I'm creating a link right here to href animals / whatever the animal ID, and what shows up on the page is the animal's name. One last little bit. I really hate that I have to keep typing in /new here. It really sucks. So I'm going to create a test for it. And I'm gonna have a little button here at the bottom that takes me to that page, because it kind of sucks to, you have to know that it's /new. That's not intuitive. So when I'm going to create one more test here.
Sorry, this is in your animals controller.
I'm going to say that it shows a link to create a new animal. So I don't need any given, because I don't need to set anything up. So the when is like what's being executed. I'm making a request to /animals. I expect there to be a link on there that says create a new animal that will take me to /animals/new. Run the test. 7 examples, 1 failure. So if I go inside of index here, I'm just going to have a href /animals/new. Right, create, what was it? Create a new animal. Test. 7 examples, 0 failures. And if I refresh this page, right at the bottom right here, you can see way more animals, but all the way at the bottom, I have a create a new animal. Maybe I'll move this all the way to the top. That makes more sense. Refresh. There's that create a new animal link right up top. It'll take me there, hopefully, to /animals/new. So updating and deleting is pretty simple, but I do want to make sure that we are okay with create and read, because those are the more difficult ones. Update and destroy is far less common, and as a result, much easier. How are we feeling about all of this so far? This kind of stuff comes with a lot of practice. This is all foreign and brand new to a lot of people, and there's a lot of concepts that are coming together.
This is in the notes too, right?
This is I'm almost reading identically from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today's readme is like super long.
Yes. All right. So let's move on in that case to we've done all of the reading. So we're able to read an individual one. We're able to read all of them. We're able to create new dogs and stuff like that, like we saw. Actually, let's just make sure that it works. We create a new animal. I have a hamster at home, and it runs.
Do you really?
I do. I did. It was my way to appease my wife to not get another cat.
No, the wheel keeps you open.
No, the wheel keeps me up at night. Yeah, and it's not a soft wheel either. You could hear it from the bedroom, and I keep it in the living room. It's quite loud, but I'm able also to create an individual one, so I can create and read. The UD of CRUD is what's next. This update and delete. So I'm going to scroll down here. See update and delete. So if you take a look here, I have a get update and a put a get edit and a put update. So this one is particularly for the form. Like if I want to update the hamster to say like it runs all day or something like that instead of all night, I need a form to do that. And this one's actually going to be the ones that actually update it inside the database. Given when then, I expect I need a dog ahead of time, right? Maybe I'll just call this hamster. All right, I have a hamster. I'm going to create it ahead of time. And then I'm going to make a request to /animals/hamster ID/edit. So it's like which particular one am I editing? I'm editing this particular hamster's ID. Let's say it's the 50th record. This would be /animals/50/edit. So I'm basically adding this /edit at the end here to make sure that I know that I'm editing the 38th animal. I expect the body, at that point, this is the then portion of given when then, to include edit animal, and then I expect the name and the description to already be there for me.
So this is saying that under each animal name, there's going to be a button that says edit animal?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Or, no, when I visit this link, I'm going to get there.
But why does it have to be hamster.id? Right? Why can't they be like name, but why they have to be specific? And hamster.id.
Just a test. Create.
So I created this hamster in the database, right? And I saved it to, let's say, A equals this, right? So how do I get the ID number inside the URL? That's kind of what we're doing here. So I have like hamster equals, I'll just do this. So I have a new hamster inside of the Besties Area, and that hamster has an ID of 40. So when I do hamster.id, I get that it's guaranteed to give me the right ID number. And then that's how I'm going to interpolate it inside of the URL here. Make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, but even though like if it's too specific like hamster.id, because like it's days, yeah, it makes sense. But
so if I create something inside of the database, when I take it out, I want to make sure I get the right one. So I can, let's say if I just said like, just give me the last animal. For this particular test, it'll work because I just created a random animal, and then the last ID is going to be the ID of this particular animal. But as you'll find out when you're dealing with like very large corporations, how many people do you think are signing up for Verizon wireless service per minute, right? Probably hundreds, maybe thousands, probably hundreds of people, right? Or like when I create a brand new post on Facebook, there's millions of posts happening per hour, right? So let's say it's 1,000 a minute. When I say like give me the last post, like I'm not 100% certain that that's going to be the right one that shows up. For us right here, because we're writing a test and it's like within this particular vacuum, it's okay. But you want to be absolutely certain that you get the right thing, because the worst idea is like, I'm going to add my credit card information, and then when I do go to like /user/ when I go to /user/50, I'm going to the wrong one or something like that.
But what if in a database they have the same name, like hamster, two hamster, they can read the same name?
It's not going to be the same idea. They're two separate entries in the database. You can kind of see what we have here. We have this hamster of 40 with name of hamster and description of they've got it rough. And over here I have the exact same record, but these are two fundamentally different entries in the database.
I have a related question to that. How many possible class instances can you have on a computer? I mean, it must be like address, right? It's not referencing them by name. So is there a limit to the number of like let's say you actually have something where that matters, like customers? Is there a limit to the number of class instances you can create?
So it's like if there's like two Jonathan Youngs in the world kind of thing?
No, I mean like every time you create one, there must be like a. It's just, does it have like an address to the like the storage location in memory? Like what else?
Oh, I see what you mean.
In a class, or does it have like a unique ID number?
I see, because we're saving stuff inside of a database that has a unique ID number.
Okay.
If you're storing stuff inside of memory, I don't know the answer to that question.
So it's referencing by the ID number.
This is referencing by ID number. Yeah. All right, so yeah, we kind of went over this test. So we're going to run it. We're going to watch it blow up. Should be 8 examples, 1 failure, because we haven't written the code yet. Makes sense. We're going to jump back to our controller. Where's animal? I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I also don't want that. Animals controller. Now I'm also going to create a new route called get. You're going to start to notice that I'm purposely putting all my gets on top and all my posts on the bottom, just for organization's sake. And because if you have a post that has the same thing as the, like, /animals is here on 23 and on 2. But there's 2 methods that I use to get there. If I put the post on top, it'll most likely overwrite the get. So I always put gets first. So here's my little URL that I created a little bit earlier. It's /animal/50 or something /edit. So I'm going to find that animal in the database, and then I'm going to load it up in this edit file with the local variable of animal with the value of this animal that I have on 18. So if you take a look under my animals views folder, I don't have this edit quite yet, so I'm going to create a new file called edit.erb. And I'm just going to have this particular form in here. Now this looks almost identical to the creating a new one. If you look side by side, between new and edit, they look almost identical. I have a post to /animals. This hidden value we'll talk about in just a little bit, but you can kind of see more or less this remains the same. Like it just has a section for name and a section for description, but it also has a particular value. Like, so it's going to interpolate the name if it exists, and it's going to interpolate the animal's description if it exists as well. Let's run this. And we see it pass, hopefully. Good. So if I go to hamster 38/edit, I have edit animal with hamster and runs all night. This shows up automatically because it's interpolating it in. But again, kind of like this first page where I have to always go to /new unless I had that link. I want to, if I go to /animal/20, this is the 20th animal, I want to have the ability to have like an edit and a delete button inside of here. So,
But not on the home screen.
but not on the home screen, only on the individual one, because otherwise it's like edit. Which one are you talking about?
Unless you edit for every single.
Yeah, unless you edit every single one, right? And that might not be the best thing to do. So I'll add another one. It shows a link to the edit form. Actually, it's in the wrong section. Put it right here in the get show. So given when then, given, I'm going to create a dog ahead of time. When, I'm going to visit that particular URL for the dog, and then I expect it to have an edit for like I expect there to be a button for editing up here. So if all goes well, I'll watch the test fail. 9 examples, 1 failure. Cool. Go inside of show, I think. I will have a little link for href equals /animals /animal.id /edit animal. All goes well, I can refresh. And there's that giant edit animal right here, which will take me to the edit animal page. Run the tests, should pass. All right.
Well, after you edit and you save,
Is
it's
that?
gonna, well, if you save after you edit, right, it's gonna go to the same ID.
If I save after I edit, it's going to go to the same ID, yeah, because it's not. Oh, we're actually going to write that test right now. But yes, it's not creating a new one. It's going to update a already existing one. So remember we talked about HTTP verbs in week 5. We talked about get, post, put, and delete. Those are the big 4, right? Get means them just give me stuff. Post means I'm sending stuff. Put is that one that we kind of talked about, but it's going to be updating, and then we're going to use that right here. And then delete is obviously I'm going to delete stuff. All right, so I have 2 things here. I'm going to edit the existing record. So I'm going to create an animal, and I'm going to create new parameters to update that animal with. Again, I don't have the luxury of the form, so I'm going to post directly to the route. So this is my given. This is what I need to get started. I'm going to like make this request to put animals / dog ID with these new params, and I'm going to reload the dog. So I expect the dog's name at this point to equal dog with an E, and the description to change as well. And then after I update, like when you go, like you update your address on USPS or something like that, and you press submit, it'll redirect you back to the page to see like this is what your summary is right now. That's what we have down here as well. Should be 11 examples, 2 failures. And nothing happened because we haven't written the code yet. This one's not terribly difficult. I'm going to throw this above the underneath post. So I have a action called put, which means it already exists in my database. I'm going to update it. So I'm going to find it based on the ID, and I'm going to update the attributes based on what's passed in. I'm going to update the attributes from the name, from what it was, to whatever the value of parameters is. And the same thing with the description. And then finally, I'm going to redirect.
Does update attributes bang like that's active record?
Mm-hmm. So all of these methods that you see here are active record methods, which is why we had that 1 day on active record queries in week 4. .all gives you all of the records. .find selects based off of what you pass in. By default, it's going to be an ID number. this .create thing that you have here is going to create a new animal and save it to the database. And this update attributes is basically saying, like, you have a record in the database, I'm going to update its attributes, specifically the name and the description here.
So for example, an animal.new and then animal.save, if you just did animal.create,
Yes.
it's just the same thing as adding those together.
Correct. Right. You can do one or the other. Yeah, there's a place and time for both. So for education purposes, this is a little easier to understand than create does both.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What does the put do differently?
So the put is the put updates something that's already inside the database. Let's go back over here. All right, so I have this dog right here. I'm going to do a doggy with 5 Ys, and then I'll have a woof arc woof as its as the new description. When I hit update here, it's going to take me to.
You could just as well have put it as a post, but because you already have a post.
I already have a post on there. Hold on one second.
Actually, we don't have a post on ModelView.
Slash animals. Oh, it's sorry. This is broken. So it's slash animals, and I'm actually changing it to put. There it is.
The value is put and not the method.
So when you submit on a form, it's by default going to force it to be a post request. So what I have here on line 3, which I promised to talk about, was I have an input type that's hidden from everyone. So instead of forcing it to be instead of forcing it to be a post, which is what your browser is going to do by default, instead it's going to force it to be a put. So it's going to come to my controller. It's going to look for a put, that put slash animal slash ID, and then it's going to put it in. That's going to know to go here instead of the post. So you're basically overriding, with this one, you are overriding the default behavior of your browser because it already exists in your database. And the correct HTTP verb is going to be a put.
So looking for a put, but with that action, animal slash animal ID, not just simple put.
Yeah.
So it's just some sort of syntax has to be on the third line underneath the form.
It just has to be underneath the form somewhere. I can put this on the bottom. Doesn't matter. Okay. Final thing, we're going to do delete, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll break off for lunch, and then I will talk for the rest of the day. So let's grab all of this stuff for deleting. I have many different tests here. Specifically, one is I want to show the have a button to show that there's going to be a to delete it. You're going to have to click this button, and then once I click it, I expect it to delete that already existing animal and then redirect to the index page. So essentially, what I'm hoping for is a little thing here that says like delete animal, and then it'll delete it from the database altogether, and then I'll get redirected to slash animals
Immediately?
Immediately, yeah. So right here, we'll go test by test. Given when then, given, I need to create the animal in order to delete it. I'm going to make a request to slash animal slash that particular ID. And then I expect that button to have like that page to have a delete this animal on there. Then when I actually delete it and I force it to be deleted here, I expect all the animals count to decrease by -1, to change it by -1. And then from there, I expect it to redirect me to /animals. So I expect the status to be a 302, and I expect the place that it tells me to end up to be /animals. So obviously, run the tests. Tests are going to blow up. And then I am going to go here to show, and then add this little bit. Let's just see this on the page and we'll talk about it. Click this button to delete this animal, and delete this animal shows up on the page. Now I have this, a button by default is a post action, and I have to override it again. So similarly to this put, whenever I have a form, it automatically defaults to post. So I have to force it using this input type hidden, a value put, in order to change it to a put. Same thing here. This form automatically becomes a post. So by having this this hidden method of delete, then it's actually going to go to the delete function instead.
Can you put that inside of a link to make that get type?
So a link by default is a get.
Yeah.
I think you can. Pretty sure. We'll find out. Do that one a little bit later. Add this last little bit. So whenever anyone makes a request, a delete request to /animals/whatever ID, I'll find it in the database, destroy it, and redirect you to /animals, and then we're done. Find out if this passes. Everything passes. Let's see if it works. Refresh this page. Delete this animal. Gone. And I get redirected. Even if I go to /20, it'll blow up and tell me that I couldn't find an animal with the ID of 20 because I've deleted it from the database. So let's kind of like see what we've got here. We can CRUD, we can read everything. We can read each individual one. We can edit each one to do like, I can make this dog meow if I want to. And I can delete this animal because I don't want a dog that meows. That's an abomination. We can get rid of it. And now it's dead.
But when you delete and it's gone, and in database they're gonna skip that ID, or it's gonna have like.
Yeah, it's just gonna be like 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. If I deleted all the other ones, it's just not gonna be in the database anymore.
Like the best way to fix it, like usually it should like sort out like 1, 2, 3, 4, or they just leave it empty.
They just leave it empty. They just don't have it anymore. Most likely, you're probably not going to delete users from your database. You might just deactivate them so they don't show up. Yeah, but I'm just saying, strictly speaking, if they deleted the record, it'd just be gone completely. Then that ID would never be used again. Cool.
Should that have redirected us back?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused why I didn't. I don't know why. It's problematic. But all right, so we learned Sinatra how to CRUD resources, create, read, update, and destroy.